All right, Dan Myers is in studio. Thanks for being here.
It is an absolute pleasure, man.
So good.
I'm thankful.
Next year, we
Howdy.
We're excited to have you. You've been on the guest list pretty much right toward the top. So,
well, I'm excited, man.
Yeah. I think congratulations are in order.
Thank you.
Building, big project, something in the works for a long
time. Yeah. We didn't call it Dare to Dream for nothing.
Yeah.
So.
So tell us about that process of what you guys got going on up there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to initially start, like the community center has been something that I've wanted to do since I came back from college. I said I'd never come back once I left, but I found myself back in Lewis County, and I said, you know what, how can we make things better here? Like all of us, when we leave and go outside of our area, we see things and encounter amenities and activities and programs and facilities that we want to see back home. So that was kind of the drive when I came back, was just to, what can we create? And I think that was the most fun of the process, was, seeing what we could do and how we could develop it. So there's been a community center idea for years and years and years, decades here. But one of the biggest things I found in my research of what everyone was doing is they just had an idea for a facility. And they said, well, we'll just have programs there. But they didn't have the idea in the development of what those programs would look like. They had an idea, but no one ran them to see the sustainability and feasibility of those. So the first thing I did in 2006 was I went and I rented a booth at the Lewis County Fair. And I had makeshift posters. I mean, something that you just create on your own. You're cutting out this thing, cutting out that community center, and,
right.
And just have it posted and say, okay, complete my survey. So I had like 275 surveys over that span of that week, wow. And I still have them in my office today. So I look at those, and that was kind of the juggernaut to kind of start the process. And then from there, you look at what's the best model. And the best model I could find for sustainability was a nonprofit as a 501c3, because we're all entrepreneurs here, right? So when you look at that, you don't want people to, with the community center mindset, you don't want people to think that you're just there to make money. So how do I show people I'm here to serve, and the sincerity of what we're trying to do is within the organization itself. So that was the mindset, and I had a few mentors. Tom Yowzy is probably my biggest mentor. With that, him being the executive director for Pratt Northam, and having the opportunity to receive funds in a way to develop programming for, initially we thought it was just going to be youth, but then we're like, well, what about our seniors? What about families? So it just broadened, and God just kind of says, listen, you thought you were going to go one way, I want you to go much bigger. So that's kind of what it really started to develop and build, as far as, okay, now we have an idea of who we can serve. Let's line up the programming and start to develop that. So in 2011, we actually received our 501c3 status. I established a board. And if any of you guys are familiar with creating a board of directors, you want people who are like-minded, are passionate about your vision and your mission. Because as an executive director, and I founded this, I don't own anything. So I am at the beck and call of the board. I can present my ideas, my vision, but at the end of the day, they've got to vote on what you want to do. So, I mean, they could say, hey, Dan, we don't like what you're doing. We're going to replace you. They really could. So, I have to just trust that what we're doing is right, and they believe in that. So,
yeah. So, 2006, Lewis County Fair, and then then you got the approval in 2011.
Yeah, and we started programming. I went to the St. Peter's church and said, listen, could we start renting your gym to start doing some programming?
It seems like only yesterday.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it does. Seems very recent.
Does. Yeah. So, and the initial thing was, I remember my first sign-ups, I started a basketball program, and I think I had 5 people show up. Here I am, a grown man in that corridor, just in tears almost, Yeah. But a week later, when we started the program, opened up, I had 20-some kids. So, you just have to continue to push. Like any business, you have to push and continue to get yourself out there, especially in our demographics. So you have to know your demographics when it comes to pricing, when it comes to programming, what the needs are. There's so much that goes into that. And I learned a lot. There were some programs that didn't cut it, and there's still today, there's programs that, we just don't get people, to attend. But you find those niches and what works, and then you just kind of build on that.
keep innovating, keep up with the ideas, and see what sticks.
Yeah. And keep asking your customers and people what they want to see and what they want to do, and just kind of feed to that, I think.
Yeah. When you said that you kind of have to, once you have the idea, then you have to find out the best way to do it. I think that's true. It's like you said, we're all entrepreneurs, and we understand that if you can find a way to organize things and direct it in the right way, then the other parts start to fall into place a little bit more. And from what we had talked about before, there's so many businesses that can't get there. And so did you feel like at some point, like some doors were being opened for you, if God was leading you that way? Because especially with an organization of your size, it's hard. It's a lot of work. It's hard. And sometimes it seems like the opportunities aren't there yet. So have you gone through any of that?
Man, the doors were closed, half open. I could get my foot in there a little bit, and I'd have to push in. Yeah. Like I started this whole thing with like $1,500 of my own money. The first full fiscal year, I think we did like $24,000, and last year we did over $500,000 gross. So, wow. You talk about that growth period, and the massive growth took place once we purchased the fitness center downtown as an asset sale. And due to the fact that there was really no gym that was really pushing health and wellness, there were some gyms and there were some people that were great and we needed that, but to really broaden the spectrum of what you could provide there with an experience, not just a location, but an experience. I think that was the biggest thing. And that residual income, as far as membership goes, that helps us keep our costs for our programs a little bit lower. So those feed on that. So if you look at the model like a YMCA and things like that, they don't make a lot of their money on some of their programming. They make their money on their residual memberships each year, you know what I mean, month to month. So you find those streams, and then you add your grants and other things into that. From our perspective, where some people like have a private business or a for-profit business, it's a little bit different. And you have to look at your margins and all that extremely tight. And we just continue to use that mission to serve, and then we create those other areas of need through our grants and such like that.
That's interesting. So I was just thinking, like, how do you maximize the use of your gross revenue? And then you pretty much right away said that you help pay for programs and stuff with that membership money.
Yeah.
So what are some ways that that $500,000 that you gross seems like, double play is huge. Like all the stuff that you do is huge, and it's expensive. I'm assuming it's very expensive what you do. You probably have a lot of people to pay, a lot of expenses and costs. What are some ways that you steward that revenue? Your employee structure, just from a business standpoint, it's fascinating to me how it is different from a private business where everything comes out of your gross revenue. I mean, everything, like if your employees are all W-2 employees, you got to factor that in. Like, for example, the fitness trainers at the gym, are those guys, are they contractors that kind of help generate their own pay? Like, what are some strategies that you use that you can maximize that gross revenue? Because, man, I imagine your costs are just through the roof.
Yeah, probably our biggest expense, obviously, is your facilities, right? So, and we were renting for so long. So we had 3 locations and we're renting. So you have that overhead. And then from an insurance standpoint, like for fitness and all of that and all of the locations that we utilize, you're talking $20,000 to $30,000 a year just in insurance. So that's a massive amount of cost, right? And then you add in your overhead with all of your basic expenses for just operating, right? Mm-hmm. for your buildings. And the good thing about our trainers is cool. And I learned this from Brandon Cathy, who was initially started with the fitness center with me. We wanted to make sure we paid our trainers appropriately and better than most others. So that's a percentage base. So whatever they bring in, they get a certain percentage, and it's higher than what we take back. So we value their service. And then instead of having to pay them a full-time hourly, say 40 hours a week, or, like 40 hours a week, we only have to pay them like 20 hours for, so they work like 4 or 5 hours a day, and then the rest of the time they can do their training and such like that. So it's a benefit to us and saves overhead on that. And then, they're motivated to bring in more clients because they make more from that. So that's a cool structure that we created early on, and it's worked very well for us. So I don't have to have as many full-time employees, which is really essential. And then we have a lot of 1099 employees, so they get a 1099 for all their training, but then they get a W-2 for their time with us. And a lot of part-time, so our coaches are part-time, like all of our summer help for all of our summer rec programs. So we ended up basically employing almost 30-some people a year.
Wow.
You know what I mean? But only full-time, I've only got about 4, when you think about it. So that really helps. And being the 24-hour fitness, from the fitness standpoint, it allows us to bring in more demographics because you have so many swing shifts in our area. So they like that availability. They want to come in different times. I don't have to have it staffed. So, members can use it, and I don't have it staffed. So that helps out a lot from that standpoint.
That's amazing. I feel like that's a really strategic, efficient use. 30 employees on $500,000 is, you'd have to do that in a very intelligent and strategic way to make that work. That's fascinating.
Yeah. And that has been the biggest challenge, is how do we do it? And you want to pay people appropriately. I want people to know I value them. And the way the minimum wage has gone up, that really affects all businesses, not just nonprofits, but for-profits especially, because it just keeps going up and up. Which you want people to get paid. You want to be able to, you want cost of living, right? So that's been a real challenge. And from a director standpoint, they did a thing in a paper a number of years ago when we just started out, and they had all of executive directors from organizations and nonprofits and all of that. And all these local ones in the area, Tri-County area, were like 6 figures, 80,000, and I was only making like $7,000 at the time because I was teaching at the time, and I didn't want to take any money from the organization. So the paper actually called me and says, "Is this a misprint?" I said, "No, it's not a misprint." So obviously when I made that decision in 2016 to walk away from teaching, because I just felt I was getting drawn to make this thing happen, and God just laid out a plan that, and I took a big hit, but I knew it would build eventually. And I became a personal trainer because I'd had a background in all of that and coaching for 20-some years. So that helped, from that standpoint, and build, that sort of financial background for me so I could actually, provide for my family, but I was also serving in a different way, because I had started in probation, working with juveniles, and then I started teaching and working with special education and coaching, and I could continue to build and serve, a greater population with every step that, I was kind of pushed to.
Yeah, I think it's a huge testament to your ability. That's not anybody can do that. I think it's a huge testament to your leadership ability and be able to pull that off.
Well, I'm a stubborn Polak, so that it's in the family. It's in the blood that we just keep pushing. You know what I mean? I always tell people you can't fail if you don't quit. So,
nice.
Yeah. Was that period of transition hard for you because I know for me personally, when I was in law enforcement, then to have a good career that paid well and had good benefits, that was a big thing. To then take a leap and be like, well, I'm just going to kind of go and help grow my wife's company and hope it works out.
Scary, wasn't it?
Scary, yeah. And we had talked before with, I don't know if it was with Carrie, maybe it was with Corwin, about that first initial period where if you don't have security, it can be really stressful because it's not successful right away. Did you have that feeling too?
Oh yeah, I was scared. And you think of it from a marriage standpoint, because usually, all of us three guys here are, we have big ideas, you know what I mean? And we can shoot the moon and want to do this and that. And our wives are that voice of, okay, well, let's look at this. Do you really want to, you know what I mean? Something, and thank God she's pulled me back in some ways, because I had some really ideas that I really wanted to do, but and obviously when we sway, I'm like, well, no, this will be really good. Just listen, let me. So it took a lot of persuading, but that voice of reason sometimes is good, but also I know that sometimes we have to push through some of those barriers, and it works out in the end if it's the right way. So it's just a matter of trial and error and seeing where things lead. And even though you'll have some pushback, sometimes you got to just push a little bit further to get through that, and then you can kind of look at the green grass on the other side.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you were in that period, did you ever think that you would be where you are today?
you know, because initially, I mean, I wanted a big building right away. And you know, we were asking for a lot of money. And earlier on, when I was younger, you know, it was like, okay, you for us or against us? This is so good. How could you go against it, right? Because it's hard to say, okay, you know, we don't need a community center. Well, we do. But it's another thing to pay for it. And I think if we would have received, you know, all of that money and built it right away, I don't know if we would have been as successful if we didn't have those growing pains.
Yep.
We looked at, I think it's even over 9 sites in the community. And I had designed facilities on there. We had, you know, even some agreements with some landowners and things like that. And it just never panned out. And then when we purchased the 7 acres downtown, you know, I thought, okay, this is it. Then COVID hit. And then all the costs went exponentially up, the infrastructure costs. So I was like, okay, what are we going to do now? You know, and then lo and behold, the facility that we're in now was in foreclosure, and it was, you know, I took a look at it. I'm like, okay, I think we can repurpose this and revitalize it, you know, and it just kind of started to move in a direction, and it just seemed to fit. You know, and the foundations, our partnering foundations, are just instrumental. And we have 3 basically founding partners that work with us. The Dyson Foundation, which is from Poughkeepsie, but they have a connection here through Joy Stillman, Joy Dyson now. Her and her husband Chris have a philanthropic group in Poughkeepsie, which is just phenomenal with us. Pratt and Northam, which is a local foundation, which has been with us since day one, and then Northern New York Community Foundation, which serves the Tri-County area. They've just been just overwhelming support for us. And we have some really good individual donors that really want to see this happen, that grew up in Lowville, left Lowville, and they have the means and ability to make things happen, and they want to see it happen. So with them, they've helped us broaden the ability to draw in, you know, more support locally, and I think that's what's been the driving force. Because we are not a really wealthy community when it comes to just overt giving and things like that. They give their time, they give whatever they can, but when you talk about big projects, it's very difficult to sell that, and it's hard to sell vision. Until they see it. Like, a lot of people didn't understand what we could create. Now when they walk in up there and see what we did, they're like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be like. You know, so then the doors open and the eyes open, and then I think we can open up and broaden what we can even do next.
Probably, so. Yeah, probably the years of we were saying that you wanted that right away. Probably the years of struggle maybe help the community to, over time, see, oh, we do need something bigger.
Yeah,
really helpful in that way.
Yeah, yep. And it helped me take different courses of action and how I address people and be more open-minded and things like that. So it's helped me grow as an individual. It's helped me grow as an executive director and a boss, because I worked for the man for a long time, you know, and it's difficult because you always feel like you're getting put in a box. And one of the things I like to do with my employees is say, listen, I am open to whatever you want to do and what you want to see, and I'll ask their opinion. I mean, in the end of the day, I kind of know what I want to see and do, but if I can encompass that and bring them to the table and say, how can we create something more? Like, I'll learn something from here today, and we'll take that back and we'll do something. You know what I mean? It's just, you can always learn from someone, and as a player and as a coach, because you guys are athletes, you know, and I think as athletes, we learn that early on, and it instills that in us, and that helps us as we get older. That's why I think sports and youth activities are so important for kids, because it really instills dedication, desire, motivation, and things like that to grow.
Yeah, and that team atmosphere, if you can get the people who are involved with you in an organization to be on the same path with the same desire, and then foster into them that vision, then you really start to see the sweet spot, as Carrie would call it, to where everything starts to move how you want and so seamless.
Yeah.
Do you ever rest, or are you just?
It's tough. It's tough.
Nobody thinks you do.
Yeah. It's, you know, what's funny is I grew up in a household where my mom was a business person. You know what I mean? So she had her own. She had, like, I can't tell you how many locations. She had her shop, and she would work 12, 15 hours a day.
What was that?
She's been a hair salon. She's had her own salon, so she's cut hair since I was born. So, you know, I was used to that work ethic and seeing that. And my dad is such a workaholic too. my dad will rest a little bit more than my mom. So it's like, and they complement each other so well. And I've taken the best of them, and that's helped me really have that drive and just continue to go. And I think people appreciate that. People appreciate the fact that, that even though as the executive director, I'm in there cleaning toilets, I'm in there vacuuming, mopping, doing all the work, extra work, not only to save money, but to have people have a good experience, So I think that's important.
Your dad used to frequent the cafe quite a bit. We have customers come and go. Like there's phases of customers. I'm sure we all know this, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And there was a time when your dad would come in a lot, like once or twice a week. And I always like seeing him. He's the man.
He is.
He's awesome.
Listening to having them around this whole project. And the project was basically 29 months. So I call it the Christmas miracle. So on Christmas Eve, 2022, I signed the dotted line to purchase the former Ridgeview restaurant. And then from there, it was design, working with architects, engineers, zoning, codes, contractors, bids, all of those things come, it takes time. Mm-hmm. And I know people say, well, when's it going to be done? When's it going to be done? And I didn't want to open up until we were ready, because you have one shot at making that first impression, and that's important. So, and I think, and everyone, when they've come up now, is like, it was worth the wait. So I think that's the benefit of that.
I feel like it happened really fast. Like, how long did it take? What was the timeline?
Well, 2022, Christmas of 2022. Wow. So
okay, yeah.
So just that, you know what I mean? So
flew by.
Yeah.
Only 2 years, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a long time though.
Yeah,
feels like you got it going quick and got it done, but it's been 2 years.
And when you're doing it yourself, you're like, okay, this is my timeline, but the timeline of the designers, the architects, they have their own timeline. So, you've got to keep pushing, what I mean, your timeline and not theirs, because otherwise they'll just, whenever they get to it. So that was the biggest thing, because you have to be your own advocate, right, for your own business or whatever it may be. So that, that was a challenge. And I learned a lot. We had a project manager, Jim Garrido and Nick Garrido. He has his own construction management company, and what I learned over that span of 29 months from him has been exponential, and it will gear us up for the next phase of development for Double Play. And I think that helps. With anything with a nonprofit, every organization that applies for grants or their partners, they want to see sustainability and feasibility. And with your grants, you don't want to be relied on your grants alone to function. So you have to be able to show some sort of sustainability through your programs and things like that. One of the things I'd always get when I would go and talk to organizations or groups, well, how come you charge because you're a nonprofit? Well, if you look at the YMCA or any organization, you have to pay staff, you have to pay the light bill, you have to pay your insurances. So there's a cost. You can't have just grants alone function as your main source of income. So that's been a challenge, because the mindset, people don't realize what a nonprofit does or how it works. And there's obviously, there's nonprofit organizations that function differently. But when you look at a community center makeup, that's what you have to be able to do, is show sustainability, because they're not just going to keep footing the bill if you can't make it. If something happens, those grants dry up. So that's important.
Yeah. What so sustainability and feasibility are important. So for people that want to start a nonprofit, that startup process, you mentioned the 3 organizations that you work with.
Yep.
Pratt Northam.
Pratt Northam. Yep.
Northam. And then, so how did you start those partnerships? How does that relationship begin when you're looking to do what you did? How does that kind of relationship come about?
To any nonprofit, or if you want to start an organization, is your mission. So your mission is your driving force for everything. And then you find those partners that share that passion for that mission, and then you tie into different funding sources that will allow you to partner with them. And if they see the fruits of that labor and the fruits of those programs and things like that, then it broadens and opens more doors for those opportunities.
So what do these organizations do? Are they sort of like nonprofit investors, or
They actually have, like, basically they have endowments, and those endowments feed organizations through grants, through different programs, community-based programs, evidence-based programs, things of that nature. Like, our mission is to improve the quality of life for all ages and demographics. Those who have special needs, so handicapped people, things like that. At-risk youth. Now, at Double Play, we don't say at-risk, because I used to function as a juvenile aid officer, and it was always at risk, at risk. Well, that's a negative connotation. So what we have changed it as at potential. So these kids who are at potential, there's kids that don't have the opportunity to play guitar, but they may have a gift. All right, and if we can share that and provide that, now you're opening them to lift themselves out of poverty or a household that doesn't let them flourish or motivate them. So that's the avenue we've wanted to create from day one. That's always been something I wanted to do, create and develop. When I was a kid, I actually grew up here in Watson, and I was always creating wiffle ball fields or building camps, or always wanted to do that. We had one place we lived here, and we had a field out back. So we took old carpet, we put 3 or 4 different holes, and we would hit golf balls to So we created our own little thing. All that sort of thing was always intriguing to me, of how I could create and build something that people would want to do. In 8th grade, if you guys remember, in junior, it used to be junior high, but middle school, you get done earlier than the kids in high school,
right?
Because you didn't have testing. So I remember our first day out, I rode my bike up, I had my boom box, right? So in the 80s, I had my boom box, and I had a roll of masking tape. Okay, and the old upper courts used to be where the baseball field was. There was upper courts there. I put a 3-point line with masking tape. Okay, here I am. The dew is still on the court, right? It's not sticking, but I got the music going. I'm just waiting for my boys to show up. Like, they're going to love this. You know what I mean? So it's just that sort of thing. They come like, oh, look at this. That's what I want people to see.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So
the 3-point line had not been normalized yet.
No, don't date yourself too far.
In the NBA around that time, and you brought it to Loudville.
Yeah.
All
right,
typical.
we're gonna lose feed here in just a sec, but we'll come right back and we'll get it going.
Awesome.
We got a lot more to add. So, can you go through the process of how that started with coaching the air quotes Team USA down in Puerto Rico?
Yeah.
Some of the background of that I wouldn't know.
Sure. So the brain of that was the Mattingleys from Indian River, and they had a connection with a Fort Drum colonel at the time, who had a connection with the Roberto Clemente family in Puerto Rico. So when they did that, Victor Rivera said, well, let's set up some exhibition games. Let's get the best of the best in the area, and we'll take them over. Wayne Mattingly was the one that was from Indian River and kind of coached some youth teams there and such. And with my coaching style and the success that we had, they had asked me and my assistant, Andy Capone, to kind of take the team and help over there. So, and we had a 18U and a 15U. So Calder played in the 15U maybe.
Yeah, he did.
And then you were on the 18U. Yep. And it just kind of broadened from there. So when you talk about the Clementes, I mean, that's, so infamous over there. It was just an easy connection for us to kind of go over. And luckily we had that tie with Victor Rivera to go over there and do that, which was amazing.
I forgot about Victor.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, the culture there is so different too. And
they're very laid back, but passionate about things.
Exactly. But I remember after games, so there's a few different teams that we would kind of play here and there at that nice stadium. And then afterwards there'd be a big dinner, and they would bring, chicken and rice and all these like really
mofongo. Yeah. Mofongo, I forget what they call it. Yeah.
And just different. The community's different.
It is. And they're tight knit. You got maybe a family of like 10 or 12 living in small houses. It's just completely different from what we do here in the States. So
yeah, it makes you appreciate what we have here, but also be able to see and appreciate a culture who seems to figure out a lot of stuff we don't, like the tight knit community. Because they have to. And it makes you wonder if maybe that's where we're actually supposed to be. Yeah. One of the big reasons why we moved back here was because of that. And this area is a little bit synonymous with that from outsiders. They come here and the community's different here.
It is.
Wow, there's something different. People seem like they care. They're nicer. They want to be a part of your life. They want to help. And you can get that feeling in a lot of countries, especially down in Central America.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
But that's awesome. Okay, so let's get back to. Do you have anything else on that, Nick?
No.
Okay.
I love listening to those kinds of stories are just fascinating to me. Like,
Well,
you keep going if you want. But
Yeah. Do you remember one thing that stands out? Coach Andy Capone on the day it was like 102 degrees. We're not used to that.
No.
From northern New York, and I don't remember what time of year it was either.
It was in the summer.
Okay, it was in the summer. And I remember being down there, and he was just walking around with like cold towels, and, wet towels, and drinks, and just keeping everybody hydrated. And he's got the towel over his head, and somehow we were supposed to keep playing a baseball game, but I think we did okay.
Yeah, we did very well.
Yeah,
we did very well. We held our own down there.
How'd it go? Yeah. What was like? Did you win anything?
Yeah, well, I think we ended up winning. They had like a little bit of a tournament. I think we ended up winning. I remember the last game. There was a phenomenal play by its shortstop from Beaver River, Marcus.
Yeah.
So he
Marcus Rogie went with us.
Made a phenomenal play at short to kind of end the game, and they thought they were going to walk all over us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially because in the you don't know whether he's calling a ball or strike, because we and I took Spanish in high school and stuff, but
that's right.
It's different.
Afuera.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So it was different. You knew the chips were stacked against us because they didn't want us to win, but in the end we did, and it was nice. It was a great experience, to say the least. So
I would like to go down and see that stadium again.
Oh,
it was very much like what you would expect in Puerto Rico, and it seemed like it was older, but it was well kept. But yeah, I mean, I think about the guys that went down there pretty often, and I'm like, Brandon Cavallette and Josh Cox, and then Marcus and Jake Rose and AJ, and man, good times.
It was, and to see those guys gel from different schools was kind of cool, and that's what I used to love about playing summer ball. And I always played better in summer than I did in school, and I don't know why, but you're just more relaxed and you don't tense, and because you're always, okay, is there going to be a coach here watching me? Because back in the day, those coaches would come at high schools. They don't anymore. It's all through showcases and everything else. But I never thought about that during summer, so I was more relaxed at the plate, and but to see all these kids from different areas and playing in the summer with different teams, like from Beaver River, guys you hated, right? From the Rats,
on the same team. Yeah.
You would start to play with them, and then you became friends, and that was fun. That was fun.
Yeah.
So.
We would do, I think it was like the North Country Athletics or something like that was our summer travel team.
Yep.
I think it was after Puerto Rico. It was like, wow, this group really meshed super well. Then they were like, we should do this at home. And then we would travel at home. But it was fun because my junior year, somewhere in there when we went to Puerto Rico after, those guys were all my friends. So you'd go and play against them in Indian River and Watertown and have that relationship with them. And then I played with a couple in JCC. Josh Cox I saw last summer, and it's like I don't know, pretty fun. Yeah. If you have an opportunity to do something like that, you just got to do it.
Oh, by all means. And you know what? That's when travel ball just started to come in, in our area. And that's a whole nother animal and a whole nother industry that has been good and bad for baseball. So you can look at it from two perspectives of what travel baseball has done. In my mind, it's almost split down the middle of the good and bad, because you've taken away kind of the American Legion, the Stan Musial, some of those types of things, which were great foundational leagues. And now it is a $14 billion business, your travel sports, recreational sports outside of schools. It's made it a business as opposed to, more of development and things like that. So that's the only downfall of some of that stuff. But you were in those early stages, which was a good time of growth and kind of a broadening of opportunities for kids to play. So that was kind of a special time. So you were fortunate to be at that early stage of that.
Yeah, and it was before a lot of technology too, where nowadays everybody's promoting themselves. They've got their TikToks and their Instagrams, and they're sending it to coaches and stuff like that. I have like no footage from my high school days, hardly at all, unless you have some in your archives. If you do, I want some.
I'll try to find some. I'll try to find some.
But those connections there are what got me my workout at Bridgeport at the Division II school there, and I wouldn't have had those if I didn't, get involved with all that. So, you want to take a lead here and go a different direction?
I got a big one.
Okay.
Being the head of an organization, everybody knows that good leaders understand they can't do it all. And you have to have some kind of an ability to delegate and know what you're good at, and then offload the rest and kind of lead from the back, lead from behind, have a bird's eye view, all that basic business stuff that I think good business leaders understand. You seem to do it all. So
not because I want to.
Can you straighten the record maybe? Yeah. Maybe do you do it all? Or are you just good at it all? Because I think from a systems, to me, I think of it, it's systems versus vision. Those are the two, like if you had to take head of an organization and then what you're good at and what you delegate, the two next categories would be systems and vision.
Yep.
Maybe I'm missing one, but I think systems and vision. So I think that for me, I picture you as being quite visionary. But then I think that your leadership and systems ability would be probably right on par with that. So I just need to know, are you like the perfect organizational leader, or do you delegate anything at all?
I've learned to delegate more and more, but the biggest, in the head of any organization, in the head of any good business, you have to have a leader, right? And sometimes they would call it the face of the organization. And sometimes, and so for so long, I had to be the only driving force because I didn't have that team yet. So unfortunately, like where I wanted to delegate more and more, I couldn't because I didn't have those people drinking the Kool-Aid yet. And then with every step of the way, I'd pick up another person who started drinking the Kool-Aid and believed in the vision, and that would help. But even to this day, like you own your own business. You're a leader of your own business. When you walk into your business, you see things that other people don't. You want it to look a certain way. You want to clean a certain way. A lot of other people are employees. They come in and they're punching a clock. You have to motivate them or instill a vision that they have some self-investment in that organization or business, that they're going to take care of some of the things that that you would normally do. So I think that's the biggest thing. Is a challenge is you want to delegate more, but they might not be totally dedicated as you are because you are the founder or the owner or something along that line. So as a director or a boss, you have to try to motivate and instill the goodness of what you want to create in that person or that employee or that instructor or that board member, that they're going to take that mission and build. So now you've got, instead of 2 people, you've got 6, 8, 12 people that are doing that same thing, and that's going to build and raise the level of your success in whatever it is. That's been the biggest challenge for me.
I can imagine. Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest challenge for most business, nonprofit or for-profit business leaders is they're just not good at doing that. They either don't have the vision they either can't envision an organizational hierarchy where they're able to realize like what needs to be delegated and what they need to focus on. I think that's a rare gift. And of business owners, of a total sum of business owners out there, even a small percentage of those that should be able to do it can do it. Not many can.
Right.
It's the biggest challenge for me, for sure, is knowing when to delegate and how much to delegate, like how much freedom you give. I liked what you said earlier about giving them like a stake in the game or realizing, like making them feel valued. I think that's so important. You don't want people who just punch in and punch out. You want people to feel like they have creative liberty. You want them to feel like they can make suggestions. You want to use every suggestion you can so that they actually see that you're not just saying they're valued, they are valued. All that stuff is so important. But yeah, I think it's the hardest thing is to realize, are you good at vision? Are you good at systems? Do you need to bring someone in who has more vision than you, who's better at it? Do you need to bring someone in who is more of a systems person? Like, where do you lack? What do you think your strength is? If you had to label your strength, like what's what's the best quality that you bring to your organization? If you had to say?
I think the biggest thing that I've brought to the table with this is the vision for what could be, and then bringing the right people on to help in that path of success. That's the biggest thing, because I know there's certain weaknesses that I have, and I try to bring people in on the board and employees that I know that are better at that. One of the things when I was writing grants initially, like my business plan, I would meet with professionals and say, well, man, it sounds great, but it's a lot of fluff. I need numbers. I need demographics. So, that sort of thing. And that ties into, our community is one where we're broken down to a lot of townships, villages, and things like that. And people look at Lowville, obviously we're the center of everything, but some of my board members are from Beaver Falls, some of them are from Lions Falls, and they're like, well, people don't want to give to this from that area because they don't think it affects them. So I used my tools as a teacher where we had to look at demographics. We had to look at how we were impacting the kids and how they were testing. So I looked at demographics. Who am I serving? How many people do I have from the town of Casterland? How many people do I have from Krogan? How many people from New Bremen are using our facility? And then they can say, listen, we're using this so I can show them the impact we're making. And then we broke it down into ages. Okay, how many kids from ages 3 to 5? How many kids from ages 7 to 16? How many adults from 25 to 55? So we break that all down in every age demographic category, and we know who we're serving, how we're serving, so that way people don't say, oh, you're just serving Lowville. Because there's 27,000 people roughly in Lewis County, and there's 7,000 people in a 7-mile radius in Lowville. So, I have to look at this as a whole because I don't want people to think we're just serving Lowville. We're not. We use Beaver River School for aquatics. We use every school district for basketball and programming, youth and adult. We use all the pools at South Lewis, Lowville, and Beaver River. So people need to, and a lot of people don't realize the gamut of what we do and how we go about using those sort of resources. So that's been the biggest challenge, and then getting people in those areas to influence others and say, hey, they're really serving everyone. That's a challenge.
Do you feel like you were able to prove that? Like, this many hundreds or thousands of children from this side of the county are benefiting from our service. You're wrong. Like you're Lions Falls, Casterland, whatever, like your people are being served by our community center.
And it's a challenge, especially in our area, because we know in our area that everything is by word of mouth, because you can't get it now with Facebook and stuff. It is easier to share what you're doing, but prior to that, it's hard to show that unless it's just word of mouth. And that is the most sincere way to create success for your mission, is by other people saying their impact.
Word of mouth.
Yes.
Yeah. People, not just
Yep.
What would you say why do you do what you do? I know you've talked about seeing a need for a community center, but what's your heart behind this entire, decades long project?
I would say it comes down to something simple as this. When I was coaching, I would create all these things. I would put these posters up. I would put locker name tags on all their lockers. Yeah. And people say, this isn't the major leagues. I said, you know what? This is their major league. And I want people to have that feeling when they walk into a facility of mine, whether it's the hitting center or the community center, or a field, like even our wiffle ball field. I would paint the lines, and I want them to feel like, man, this is something special for me. Not Dan Myers, for that person who's experiencing that flag football event, that wiffle ball or that travel ball or the photography class. I want them to be able to walk in and say, this is for me, this is special. So that's been my driving force from day one. Just try to create something that makes their life better. And that comes back to the quality of life, which we deserve that here, I think.
Yeah. I've been able to see kind of the different variances of that because I was in those locker rooms. I had my name tag, and that's what it felt like for me. It felt special. It felt like this is intentional, and we're going to make it happen. So I'm just going to reset really quick because we had an audio issue, so I just want to make sure that we're all set. We'll check time and make sure we get you out of here. But
sure, man.
All right?
I'm good, whatever.
Take a quick break. We were talking a little bit before about making the experience special and making people feel welcome, making people feel like this is something that they can get a lot out of. And I was just saying that I feel that. And I've also been a part of Double Play. I helped out with the hitting center some.
Long time.
The first time that I walked in there, that's the thought I had too. Just like, this is just how Danny Myers does things. Like, it just feels right. Like, it feels thought out, planned, and executed to perfection. So my question for you would be, when it comes to analytics and also like the emotional side of employees, it can be hard to intertwine those sometimes. Is that something that you figured out?
I think every day you learn something new. And I find myself, as the more people I bring on and hire, I got to step back because I have to remember that when I worked in the school system, or you know what I mean, you had bosses and you wanted to be treated a certain way and handled a certain way, and if they didn't hear you, they would be listening, but they didn't hear you, or they would hear you and weren't really listening.
Right.
I think that's important. Because I can be pretty straightforward with what I want and want to do, but I've learned to be less authoritative in different things and try to say, okay, your strengths are this, my weakness here, but this is my vision for this. How can we still get to the same spot, same success rate, and make it happen with both of our ideas. And it comes back to what your leadership skills are and what your vision is and how do you share that and let them ride in the bus and help you drive that bus. So I think that's been the biggest challenge for me, but reflecting on how I felt when I was put in a box, I think that's important, as we grow as men, as we grow as husbands, as we grow as fathers, to do that more and more. So
it seems like humility is the hitch pin of how, yes, you're driving the tractor, you're driving whatever, but you're pulling an entire wagon with people who you need to have invested in what you're doing and with the same vision, and allow them to have the freedom to make their direction also known and do that in a way that is still your vision.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you are still driving the bus. So how much can you give? How much can you take? But if you can be humble.
Yeah. And throughout the years, I've become more humble, and, your ego, they talk about edging God out, right? And if you don't allow that ego to take a back seat and allow yourself to grow with that humility, I think the more I did that as I've aged, it's helped me become a better leader. And I think people have seen that in a way that it's been more conducive for people to come on board and do greater things with our organization. So,
yeah. You mentioned earlier the rebranding side of the work. You wanted to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. And initially, it's a cool story about the first phase of our logo brand. I actually used special education students in my class who were taking BOCES classes with graphic design and things like that. So my vision was is double play, and I'll note this, that whenever people think double play, they think it's a baseball-driven name. The idea was double play is a play on words for its mind and body. So that's where I didn't want it just to be a sports facility. I wanted it to be an enrichment, because there's musicians, there's athletes, there's artists. Everyone has different God-given talents and gifts. So, initially the thought was it was going to be a sports type thing, but then it just broadened to, there's people here that are not being served in the enrichment categories that they have, certain gifts for. So that's where that really derived from. And initially the logo was double play, and it had like some balls in it. And we actually had a crest that was created, and the crest was like paintbrushes and a baseball bat and family and all that sort of thing with a camera. So it encompassed, but it was a lot, early on I needed to show everything we do. So that was the initial play on that. And it kind of gets lost in translation of what we actually do if you don't really look at that crest initially. And then with the new building and in the project, we wanted to rebrand to the community in a way that was more professional, simplified. It wasn't so busy, because when you have your logo and you want that to be out in public, you want it to be recognizable, clean, crisp, things like that. And that was the biggest challenge when you've got a board of 12 or 13 people, which we had at the time. And you want it to be somewhat masculine, but you want it to be feminine. You want it to be right in the middle of the road so everyone can appreciate it and it doesn't feel too bold and too, So that was the hardest part of this project, was rebranding, because some people had different ideas, and we had some marketing people come in and had some great ideas, but it didn't fit it didn't feel right. And it took a while, and we had someone locally just kind of work with us on it, and it worked out really well. And ironically, I still wanted that crest kind of feel to it, like a shield almost, you know what I mean? Like a protection, like a shield, like a badge. and we kind of used. I actually was just watching a movie, and it had Warner Brothers, and I saw the Warner Brothers logo, and I'm like, how about DP with kind of that crest and kind of have some soft curves, but not too bold, and it just kind of flowed, and it finally went into movement. So
From Warner Brothers.
yeah.
So even when you're trying to relax and watch a movie,
The brain never stops. I have to email myself or text myself in the middle of the night. I'll wake up. And,
That's a great story.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Inspiration comes
Yeah.
at the randomest
Yep.
times. Yeah.
Yep.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
you can't really shut off the visionary. It's just going to be that way forever. So
Yeah,
you're kind
I
of stuck
know.
with
It's,
it.
Yeah, it's like a disease. So
I love that word, enrichment. I don't know. It's just, it's a powerful word. It's important.
it is, and especially around here because sometimes we don't see, because there's so many phenomenal artists in our area, artisans, woodworkers, photographers, and we don't see a lot of that on a large scale. But there is some really finite individuals that are just so talented. So.
I know that the project outlined some pretty, fields and stuff at the new facility, and I'm sure not all of that is complete, right?
No.
Still working on that. So besides that, and you can even touch on those again if you want, what you have planned what is already planned but has not yet been completed. But I would like to know if you're willing to share a future vision for what you see down the road beyond this project.
Yeah. So we look at it as a 3-phase approach.
Okay.
In phase 1 being complete now with the renovation of the former Ridgeview restaurant, now a community center, which encompasses not only the fitness and wellness, but the enrichment area with a teen and senior center where people feel like they can come and enjoy not just the wellness part of it, but now you've got the senior center. So they can come and do classes. We're having Office of the Aging come in and do things, and we're doing Alzheimer's and dementia classes. Place they can come and watch vintage movies, listen to vinyl records, and then do our photography and art and all that. And then you tie that in with the performing arts and things of that nature. So phase 1 in the community kitchen with doing cooking classes. You can come and learn how to do sushi, or learn how to, if you have diabetes, how can we help you cook more successfully and healthier. So, or learning how to can, like I want to learn how to can. People want soup classes, so we have someone who's going to come in and learn how to teach soup bases. So it's that sort of cool thing that, and we don't have that. And some of the organizations are kind of tied to facilities that people may not want to travel to, where this is a community entity where they feel like it's kind of their home. So that's phase 1. Phase 2 is the recreational fields. And what we don't realize is this area is atypical of other areas where they have municipalities that take care of recreational fields. They have, full fields for all athletes that are run by municipalities, not just schools. And schools are a little bit more rigid in their ability to let people use their facilities, and that's been a driving force for us to have a full encompassing community center. So phase 2 would be a small recreational fields. It's about 2.5 acres. It's going to have 2 wiffle ball fields that are replicas of Little Fenway and Little Yankee Stadium, which they were built and designed by Grand Slam Safety.
So a Yankees replica and a minor league team replica of the Red Sox, right? Is that what you're
Yeah. We even have the Sitco sign and everything. So it is.
Wow, that's cool.
It's going to be a game changer.
Cool. Neat.
And then a small 5-on-5 or 7-on-7 recreational field. The biggest need, I feel, is the ages from 18 to 25 for activities for men and women. So, we have men's basketball, we have men's softball. We don't have women's softball. We have some women's soccer, but if we did a co-ed, for adults, they can come, football, flag football, things of that nature. They need to have that outlet. And one of the things I've found, playing softball locally and all that, there's nothing for women at that age, and they're following their husbands or their boyfriends and sitting in the stands. Well, we should have a girls softball league. We should have a girls basketball league. So that area is going to allow us to broaden that scope and opportunities. And then the other piece, which I really love, is the beach volleyball courts. So 2 sand volleyball courts, I think, are going to be awesome, because co-ed and everything we kind of, you can do more co-ed as we get older. We'll have individual stuff too with men and women individually, but that community feel and creating that, I think, is going to be just a game changer for us. And that's kind of the phase 2. And then phase 3 for me is a gymnasium and a small turf area because of the inclement weather. We need that and deserve that here. When I was doing the initial business outline, I looked at how many people from Lewis County were driving to Watertown or other areas for indoor soccer or other sports. And we were losing financially from our community about $6,000 every 6 to 8 weeks that was going to Jefferson County. And not only are they spending that for their activities, but they're buying gas, they're buying food out there. So
they're staying over even.
Staying over.
Some cases.
Yeah. So in the county planning department did a study for us based on community centers, and they have a nationwide template that they can put this in and put all the demographics in every category from food, clothing, gas, all that. In the monetary influx by keeping or having this here will draw people in from other areas, but are locally, is almost $1 million a year that we would bring in revenue, not just for our organization, but the community and county as a whole. So those are real numbers. It is I think it's like $14 or $16 billion business, the rec side of things. So it's factual, it's evidence-based, so it's not something we're pulling out of the air of what it's going to instill and bring to the community as far as economic development. For years, our community has looked at industrial development as a way to go about bringing jobs and things like that. But for us, we established a community development opportunity where if we have the infrastructure for community centers and activities, people will come to that and draw more frequently. So then you'll get your bigger businesses and get the other, because the infrastructure is there from a community standpoint. So that's what I've always looked at, from our goal of kind of instilling in donors and municipalities of why this is important. So,
yeah, that is a great explanation of what makes a worthy cause for all of the economic development in our area. The way that the county is moving towards trying to build industry and business right now, there's obviously a huge movement. We know that the IDA is working really hard. That right there is like the most solid plan / outlook that I've heard yet of this will actually produce benefit for our county, dollars spent, attraction, tourism, what have you. That's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. It makes it, and I've told people before, the leadership, the young leadership that we have coming up right now, Naturally Lewis, Brittany Davis, and Cheyenne Styria, and Ryan Pache, and the legislators and things like that. The vision has changed, and it's starting to really invest internally, not just infrastructure, but businesses, small businesses first, and quality of life. We have some of the best natural resources in the state by far, and now we need to shine them up and show them and enhance what we're providing from all standpoints. And I think you're going to see that just continue to grow. I tell people it's going to be the golden age of our growth in Lewis County over the next 10 to 15 years.
I think you could see that. Like, you can start to see that a little bit in the works, because, they're doing great work over there, and some of the ideas they're proposing are things that, like, I have children, and some of the stuff they're proposing is like, yes, we need that here. Yep. It'd be great to have here. But also on a broader scale, I know personally people from Fort Drum, from Old Forge, from down Utica way, who are coming here.
Yes.
Who are coming here. There's a huge need for it. And I agree with Nick. I think seeing the numbers, seeing the outlining, understanding that this is a need for the community is the message that we need to be.
And it's an investment that's going to give back. So if you look at that, bringing in that sort of money, so it's not as bad. Like, we partner with the county on so many different levels in different municipalities. And they see the value of that, of what we're providing as a nonprofit, and they invest in us. And we could do more. Like, there's so many different organizations that benefit from municipalities and things like that. Not just our organizations, but your libraries and some of the other that, they see the value in that. And they know that it's going to be an investment that's going to return to them through sales tax and things like that with people coming into the area, which is a vital piece. So that gymnasium, because I have kids out back of my house, in Memorial Park. They were outside playing basketball last night in the rain because they don't have a facility. And we can't access the schools because of interscholastic sports and timing. So a community gym is essential. It really is. And then when you talk about a turf area, because of the weather is so inclement around here, we need that piece. The original design was a 20,000 square foot facility with an indoor track, a raised track where you could look down, and then even an aquatic center. The people don't realize, and you do because you handle your swim program and stuff with your wife, is swimming, especially even just swimming lessons. So let's just talk about the youth, for instance. That's one of the biggest causes of death in the state is drowning for certain age groups. Mm-hmm. So that piece is essential. You know what I mean? But look at seniors. Aquatic therapy is probably the most essential piece of quality of life and long-term for people. And we do an aquatic program through the Office of the Aging with water aerobics, but we can only do it early in the morning. So if we had a pool, even if it's a therapy pool, now you've got those people that can utilize that. ARC can use it. The UCP can use it. But there's a huge expense to that. Pools are expensive, but they're an essential piece to a community. So we would love to look at that component as part of that Phase 3 plan if certain funding sources come online, and we're trying to align ourselves with some congressional funding through Kirsten Gillibrand. We've applied for funding for that through a number of years, and that could be a game changer. And I think finally with the senator coming and visiting us last year and seeing the vision, because her economic plan is kind of in line with what we're trying to do here with community-based stuff and then bringing in broader spectrums of businesses. That sort of thing, I think you're going to see municipalities seeing the value of that and then growing. So that's an interesting piece down the line. We could have a whole session just on aquatics of what that does, but it's an expensive piece. So if you partner with schools or municipalities to create this venue, now you're opening doors. So,
yeah, it sounds like you got some years' experience on how to pull this stuff off.
Well, it's one of those things where you go down avenues and you see what lights fires, and then you kind of go from there. I mean, we would travel to aquatics when my daughter was traveling for swim, so you'd see all these things, or for softball, or for baseball, or for basketball. It is encompassing in other areas. We just haven't felt that full gamut here of what it really is going to do. But it's coming, because you're seeing bits and pieces of what we're creating. So,
real quick, I just want people to I want a clear message for people. Besides the programming that will be available, like to like Little League type things where there'll be like, access to the facilities through, organized sports and whatnot. Yep. What can the average member, how can they expect to have access to the facility? Because it's not just a gym anymore. It's all it's hugely expanded, and it's a lot more services and products you're offering. So what is the membership going to look like going forward? How can people access all the fun stuff you're doing?
Well, on top of like the membership stuff, we're going to have it's an event center, so you can rent it for different things. Baby showers and just events like class reunions, things of that nature. But all the cooking classes and just open opportunities that you don't have to be a member to be involved with. Okay. Our senior programs are going to come online this summer. Our teen programs are going to come online this summer. So we want our location to be a safe haven and a place of gathering where people can use it as a commune to, and we see that with our seniors. They come to work out, but they come to socialize. And I want it to be a safe place where people know it's the nerve center of community fun, learning. And our motto has been learn more, do more, and be more. And every facet of that is true when you walk in there. I want every part of that facility to be where you can learn, do, and be more, with yourself and for others.
What is the best place for people to follow these like updates? Is it Facebook?
Facebook is probably the best. And you look at everything was websites, right? Mm-hmm. Now it's social media. Mm-hmm. That's one of the biggest things, which is essential for us, is just to let people know. It goes back to the word of mouth. So once you see it on Facebook, hey, did you see this on Facebook? When you're at the store, grocery store, it's that sort of thing, and it'll drive. And when you come, I want you to be able to bring your child. I want you to bring your child in, and you have something to do as an adult. So that's the biggest thing, is it has to have something for everyone. And that was one of the visions we had early on, is we want to create something for everyone, not just for an athlete, not just for a senior, not just for a kid, but for everybody. And I think that's the biggest thing I want people to know, is we're here to create for you. One of the things that came up, I'm always thinking and writing things down, is as our organization, we have invested in all of you in the community. Okay, now it's time for you to invest in yourself and your family with what we're trying to create. And it doesn't have to be just double play. There's other people doing phenomenal things, and we just happen to do things a little bit broader in certain things. But everyone has their niches. So if whether it's with double play or whether it's with another organization, utilize those abilities that people are providing. So,
how's it feel? Years and years of this specific thing happening, the facility and getting this program off. I mean, how many years were you looking for this exact
18
thing?
18 years to get to this point.
How's it feel?
You would think it would be, you say to yourself, if I get this project done, I'm going to feel good. If I get this done, if you're a driven person, like as an athlete or a business person, you get that done, and then you're immediately making the next list. Mm-hmm. So that has been, and I've said it before, it's kind of like a disease. There's like that hole you can't fill because there's more to do. Sometimes it's like, man, maybe I should have just stayed teaching and not do all this. But how many people would have benefited if you just sat behind a desk at the classroom? I mean, you impact people. I mean, I still have people and kids coaching that I did, but even kids that I taught that, you influence. But it's just, what's next? What can I do next? God's never done with you, man.
Sounds about
Your
right.
path is never complete until you make it home to the golden streets. And
I wouldn't believe you if you said anything else. Good answer.
Yeah, to see a project come to fruition like that, especially having some knowledge of the behind the scenes, it's really cool to see. I hope you're encouraged by the response from the community, because it seems like this is something that we need.
I am.
So,
it's been a joy.
What hours is the gym open? Are your programmings? What kind of blocks? Just really quick before we wrap up.
Sure.
Just so people can kind of get an idea, and then that message is out there.
So we've wanted to be regimented with our program. So we try to keep every program 6 weeks when it comes to youth or seniors, stuff like that. So that way they're getting more than a month. It's 1 or 2 times a week for all of that. Those programs are going to run throughout the day and evening, depending on availability and stuff like that, especially for instructors. The gym is 24 hours a day, which is awesome. It gives people the autonomy to come and go as they please, when they're motivated, when they're not motivated, which is nice. So I think we've got the best of both worlds when it comes to that. Some of the programs that we run within the schools, they're kind of confined to weekends because of the gyms.
Right.
Until we have our own facility from a gymnasium standpoint, we're limited with there. But I think that's going to broaden as we grow and get this facility phase 2 and then phase 3.
Yeah, excellent. I think I speak for Nick. We can't thank you enough for coming in. Like, this has been
absolute
a blast.
pleasure, man. Yeah. I don't get a chance to kind of talk like that to so many people, and to sit down with you guys, people that I respect. It's a joy. It really is.
Well, feelings mutual. It's an honor to have you.
Awesome.
Thanks for
and we'll be having you on again for sure.
Awesome.
So that's going to do it, folks. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.